Hello, this is Timothy Perfect from Twocanoes Software, and I want to talk to you today about using our tools, MDS, DFU Blaster, for being able to take any Mac from 2013 all the way up to present, and without caring what's on it, be able to completely wipe the machine and install the most recent OS that that machine supports. So as many of you have, I have a stack of Macs here. Here we go. A stack of Macs, many different versions, many different years. The first one is I have an Intel MacBook Pro 2017. This one has the touch bar on it, so you know it has a T2 processor on it. Doesn't really matter, just showing off my knowledge of the touch bar. I guess I was glad to get the escape key back. We'll just leave it at that. The next one is this 2024 MacBook Air, or no, sorry, MacBook Pro. Then I think it's like an M2 MacBook Air from 2022, and then finally we got a 2020 MacBook Air. Okay, so all those different ones have different we have different techniques depending on what processor it has. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you the process for using our tools to be able to, doesn't matter what the state of it is, getting that machine back up and running and ready to be sent out. So to do that, we'll use some of our tools. And I'll talk to them as we kind of go through it. So let me switch over to kind of the overhead setup. So I got our MacBook Pro here. Again, doesn't matter what state it's in. In fact, I'll let it boot up. It's got a flashing folder on it, so it means it doesn't really have a recovery or anything else on it. And then we're going to boot it up off the network, or do internet recovery, which is kind of downloading the OS and starting it up. One of the kind of the key things is that we need to be able to boot into an operating system that can install the most recent OS. And for the Intel machines, that means that we have to be at Big Sur or later. So we don't know what OS is on this machine right now. So if we boot in internet recovery, it could be something that's really old or something that's relatively new or the latest. We don't know. But if we boot to internet recovery, we know it's going to be the most recent version. And since we're kind of limiting it to 2013 and later, we're going to get Big Sur or later, which means we can install the most recent OS. So it's important to have network. So I have this network cable here that I'm going to plug into. It's Ethernet here. That allows us to quickly boot into it. And also we want to connect power up to it. So let me go ahead and connect power and network. And that's kind of important. Okay, I'll connect power up to it. And then for here, what I'll do is I will power it down and I will hold the key down. I'll turn it on. With these T2s, you have to let it sit for a few seconds. So press the power button, hold the option key down, you should get a chime. Oh, I didn't wait long enough. Press the power button. There we go, there's the chime. And now, hold the option key down, we can see the option selector. And we want to boot into internet recovery. We can go and use the automaton to press that button. This is our automaton, which is basically emulates keyboard strokes. We use it for some of our more advanced commands. What we want to do is do Command Option R to boot into internet recovery. I'll just press this now because it really depends on the network and the time to boot up. And so I didn't put the timing on that. It depends on kind of the environment that you're in. But that's another kind of good point. If you have a software update server, it can pull the image from that and boot to it, which can save a little bit of time. This says it's going to take, I think, 2 minutes to boot up, which is not a lot of time. And then once it does that, we'll just run this run the MDS workflow. So while that's booting up, let me actually show you kind of how we have the configuration of MDS set up. So let me launch MDS. And so once this one's booted in recovery, I'm going to run a workflow that'll completely wipe the drive and install the OS onto it. That's the most recent version, which is macOS 15, and then install a few applications on it. So you can see here I have these workflows. You can see the one that's selected is macOS 15. If I double click to go into it, you'll see that it's called macOS 15. I've selected the macOS Sequoia 15.2. And the resources, I'm not installing any resources, and I'm rebooting. I do create an account and options is I join Wi-Fi and I skip the setup assistant. Don't really care about that for now. If you want to set up from just the OS setup assistant, but this kind of shows you the advanced settings to go in and do some troubleshooting if you wanted to. So, all right, so that's it. Next thing we do is we save it as a disk image. I saved this to the web folder inside of shared. It's already saved, called intel.dmg. And then I went into the web service and I enabled the web service for that folder. So if I go into here, you'll see that I've enabled this on port 80 for this shared folder. And then I'm able to run the automaton to image the machine. So let me show you the automaton. You notice up here in the upper right-hand corner of MDS, we have the automaton 2 icon. I'll select that. And you can see I have three different sequences I want to run. And you can see on the automaton there's 3 buttons. And I can see I've associated down here on the left side. Oh, you can't see it because my window's in the way, but you can see down here in the lower left side I have the 3 different buttons assigned. So this one we're doing what's called Intel Fast, which means we're already doing it based on, it's already booted into Internet Recovery. And you can see here on the right side, we do all the different steps to be able to do the keystrokes to get the shortcut running. So that's, and then I save it to this one, and it's just a matter of plugging it in and clicking Update Automaton in the upper right-hand corner, and it programs that sequence of keys. So that's all done. This is still booting up, so we'll wait it to finish booted up, and then I'll come back and walk you through it. All right, it is completed booting up now. So now all you have to do is take our automaton, and I'll plug it into any USB port. There we go. Plugged in, and let me get this on screen. You can see, there you go, and I'll press button number 3, and then I'll set it aside. I'll set it right here so you can see the flashing LEDs. If you can see it, there we go. And you can see it's already doing the keystrokes. It's selecting terminal and opened up the terminal. It's kind of hard to see, but now it's running a command that will kick off the workflow runner. There it goes. And that's, of course, off the web server on this other machine. And this one's done, so I can remove it. We don't need the automaton anymore. And it's a little bit hard to see. But one of the the key pieces, if I can zoom this in a little bit, you can see that it has a QR code that has the information, has the type of machine, the serial number, and the boot environment. So you can easily take a snapshot of that and be able to look it up in your system to be able to see it. So that's booting up. Let me move this back out. I'll leave that in so you can kind of see it better. Good. And of course, I haven't touched anything. You notice that on the right side right here, it's starting to have, it's only got a little glare here. Here, automatically count down. Oh, I forgot in the workflow, it prompts the technician for the computer name, so I'll enter that in. You can skip that and have it just go through, but that's kind of one for the workflow that I had. I forgot to remove that. So that does prompt, and it does it on purpose because if it doesn't know what the computer name is, it has to prompt. But that's optional. So now you can see that it's running the script. So what it's going to do is from the web server, which is this other machine right next to it, it's going to copy the OS over, remove all the APFS volumes, reestablish those APF volumes, install the OS, and then reboot and configure the machine and be all set up. So we're done. So now we can move on to the next one. So I'll go ahead and let this run, and you can see kind of all the steps that it takes to complete it. No operator interaction or intervention whatsoever. It's all basically at this point it's done. And at this point we'll just wait. All right, it is now completed. As you can see, it logged into the desktop. Let me switch over here. You can see that it's logged into the desktop. We could have had it just be at the setup assistant if we wanted to. This is a great illustration of how the utilities could be run to test the keyboard and the webcam and those kind of things. It did take about 40 minutes to do this, so it does take a while to do it, but you notice that all the time was up front. So I only spent less than a minute getting everything, well, maybe it was 2 minutes booting into internet recovery, pressing the automaton to get it run. And you can do as many of these machines as you have space for, so you can put them out on a table, could have done 10 or 20 machines all at once, and after 40 minutes, it would have been completely done and completed. So we've completed that, so let me move this out of the way. And now let's go on to the next one. So now we'll move from a Intel-based machine into the world of Apple Silicon. And there's two different ways I'm going to show you how to do this. Here, let me turn this to my full face. And we'll start off with this MacBook Air, mainly because it was on top. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to do what's called auto DFU blast this. And so we'll use DFU blaster and a USB cable and also power hooked up to this machine. So let me show. So I got this. There we go. The machine right now, it doesn't matter what state it's in. It can be no OS installed. It can be whatever version of the OS. I do want to install network because do I even need network? Oh yeah, if we run an MDS workflow, we'll need to get access to MDS to do that. And so I'll plug it in just for later on. And I will also plug in a USB-C cable. Right here. Okay, so I'm taking a USB-C cable from the DFU port on the Mac that's running DFU Blaster, and I'll plug it into the DFU port on the this M1 MacBook Air. And so now I will open up DFU Blaster, and I will turn on, there's these three buttons up top, one that says automatic DFU. When I select that, any machine that's plugged in will automatically go into DFU mode. Restore automatically means you'll restore the most recent version of macOS onto it, and then put in recovery after restore means that it'll go into recovery all ready to run an MDS workflow to install those utilities to check it or get it pre-installed software for folks to use. So I'll go ahead and turn this on, and what you want to do is watch this. As soon as I turn it on, you can see that it'll go into DFU mode, which it did. Let me go ahead and quit MDS because I don't need that. And you can see down in the lower, it's hard to see here because I'm kind of blocking it, but you can see that we have the step 2 of 4 downloading system. I've already downloaded it, so it can go ahead and just restore onto the machine. This is a lot faster. This takes between 5 and 8 minutes to completely wipe and reinstall the OS. And then once it's done, it'll come back and it will be into the recovery mode. And from there, we can run an MDS workflow. So I'll let this run, and when it comes back, you'll see that it's ready to go. Okay, it's now been completed, and you can see that the progress bar finished on this machine, and then it rebooted again, and now it's booting into recovery. One of the things that you may have seen when I was video, I swapped this out. I had forgotten to put in power. I had Ethernet and the DFU port, but it is important to have power because you don't want this machine providing power to the MDS machine, because then the DFU is in the wrong role and it won't complete successfully. But anyways, it's always good to plug in power to all the machines being restored. So let me go ahead. I don't need power anymore. I'll take that out and I'll plug the Ethernet back. I don't need DFU either, but I'll plug in power. But there's a couple things I want to show you that are really important. Number one is when you boot into recovery, you can see that the serial number is now available from the over the USB. And it's really important because you can take, if you're ingesting this machine into your system, you can now take that QR code and scan that in and put it into your system. There's a couple different ways to do it. If you two-finger click, you can copy the serial number. You can copy it in multiple ones or one as a CSV, or you can export it. And you can also, if you go up to the gear, there's a use event script. So this can automatically call your webhook or your internal systems to report that serial number and also the progress as this goes forward. I don't have that set up right now because it's all dependent on how your internal systems work. But just wanted to share that with you. So it makes capturing that serial number really easy. So now this machine we booted in recovery. We didn't have to do that. If we didn't boot in recovery, it would just stay right there, ready to set up. We could put it on the shelf and be ready to send it out. But what happens if we wanted to actually configure it, some additional, install some applications and those kind of things? Well, we have the MDS automaton again, and I have number one that was for ARM or Apple Silicon. And so I'll plug this in. Ooh, I'm running out of ports here. So I'll unplug it from the DFU port, and I'll plug this in and get this on the screen, and I will press number one. See, it's flashing. There we go.
Voiceover on recovery window. Recovery application in window. Recovery assistant menu. Recovery assist. Recover voiceover off.
Okay, so it's navigating, and then it's going to open up terminal and run the workflow. There it goes. It opened up terminal. It might be a little bit hard to see, but now it's running the command to kick off the workflow, just like we did on the Intel one, and then it will start running to install the software. So there it goes. So you can see MDS deploy. I'll push it up a little closer. So you can see MDS deploy, and it's auto running in 30 seconds. It says that right down here. And then it'll automatically install that. This is a lot faster than the Intel one because it doesn't have to install the OS. This workflow is another MDS workflow that all it does is configure the main, all the applications and the user account. So again, you don't have to do that if you don't want to set the machine up, but MDS does that. So here goes, it's starting, and it should just take a few seconds. Oh, that's right, I installed Chrome and Firefox, so those are all like a gig each, so it has to copy those over. But now it's done. It took less than 30 seconds. And then it reboots, and once it reboots, you'll see a progress window and a log that appears, and it'll show you the progress as it goes forward. And of course, you can add any scripts or launch any applications to allow you to test the hardware on this machine or get it configured for the next user. All right, set the login window, but you can see it's gray, so it hasn't quite filled in. It should show the log next and give a progress on what it's doing. There it goes. So it's a beautiful green screen showing the progress. It'll install a couple of packages, install Chrome, Firefox, and I believe our Xcreds, and then reboot, and then be back at the login window. So just probably less than a minute till it's configured, and then it's able to be deployed. And there we are. It's fully set up. You can see Xcreds. I can log in as the local account that's been set up. And we're all ready to go. We got the sequoia trees. So let me take this away. And now we'll go to our final demonstration of how to do this at a larger scale. So we have 2 more machines. And we could do 3, but I don't have a lot of desk space, so we'll do this. Let me change over to full Tim. All right, so we got these 2 machines. This is a 2014 and I think 2022 MacBook Air. And this is a MacBook Pro. So I'll set these down, rearrange a bit. I'll switch over so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so pull this back. So I have this is the MacBook Air. There we go. So it's 2 machines. And so as I mentioned before, we can do up to 5 machines at once or 10 machines if we have another second hub. But what I'm using is the acroname Hub 3C. And this Hub 3C allows you to put the machines in DFU mode and then restore them all in one shot. So I will hook up power. Plug the power back in to this hub. And then next I'll take a USB cable and I'll hook each one of the Macs up to be able to have power. and then I will, now let's do that first. Let's arrange it a little bit. Okay, so now I have power on both sides of this one. Now what I want to do is, I have this acronym hub. I want to plug in port 0. You can see it here. Port 0 will go into my MDS system, and port 1 will go into this first Mac, and port 2 will go into this other Mac, all USB-C. So let me hook that up. Okay, let me explain what I've hooked up. So Mac number 1, this is the MacBook Air, so it's the back one. So the back one should go into port 1 of the hub, which it does. And this other one this is the MacBook Air. This is the MacBook Pro 2024. It's the front USB port is the DFU, and it will follow this around, and it goes into port 2 of the hub. So that's great. Port number 0 of the hub goes into my MDS system. So now there's this button in the upper right hand corner that says acronym hub, and we'll select that, and you can see that refreshes. And you should see at the top two things, two devices, connected, yes and yes. And as I said, Mac 1 here is connected up to port 1, Mac 2 is connected up to port 2. So with this, I will highlight both of these and I'll say DFU mode. And you can see as soon as I press DFU mode, those machines went off and it went in DFU mode. And then if I go over here to DFU Blaster, you can see that those devices are now in DFU mode. So I have both of them are in DFU mode here, and they're ready to restore, just like we did all the other ones. So I can now select these two. And the nice thing about this is I can have 5 Macs plugged in. I can even add 10 Macs plugged in. In fact, the real limit for one machine to be able to do it is technically 16, because Apple Configurator only really going to reliably restore 16 machines at a time, or between 12 and 16. But what we recommend is having 2 acronym hubs to do 10 machines at once. So for this one, I'll just do 2, and they're not the same machine. These are, one of them's MacBook Pro 2024, and the other one is a 2022 MacBook Air. And so it's going to download and install the most recent OS for each one of those. Or in here, I could select which IPSW we wanted to use. But for this exercise, we're just going to click Restore and let DFU Blaster figure out which the correct macOS, the most recent version of macOS for these models to restore. Another nice feature of DFU Blaster down here, you can see, I can't really see it here, let me move it over, is it has the free space down here, because when it downloads these IPSWs and unzips them, they can take up a lot of disk space. And over time, that can accumulate. We do clean that out, but it's important to not run out of disk space, because you'll get strange failures if that happens. So we lay to monitor it. It turns red when it's getting close to 0. And like I said, we will remove the cache files as necessary. So you can see it's already unzipping the file and it's starting to restore. And so now both these machines are being restored simultaneously. And when they're done, they're going to reboot into macOS, or back into the setup system, so they're all ready to be restored. And at that point, we can run, like we did on the other one, we can run an MDS workflow to be able to add the tools and those kind of things to be able to have any tools to verify the hardware and those kind of things. Alternately, we can just let them finish and then be done with them. One of the other kind of nice things is that once it boots in recovery, you can grab the serial number off of it and ingest it. So that allows you to kind of complete the process. So we'll go ahead and let that complete, and then I'll show you how to run the MDS workflow. So you can now see both devices are completed. We can boot into recovery mode. So if we go back to the acronym one, I'll just select the second one and click go into recovery. And just like we did with the other, when we did the single one, it'll boot in recovery, and then I can take my MDS automaton, run that same workflow to either configure it or set up user accounts or whatever else I want to do on it. The other kind of important thing is that when it shows up in this list in recovery mode, it'll show the serial number. So again, we can ingest that and go ahead and start final configuration of it. So this allows you to do anywhere from one machine to, as many fit on the hub, up to 5 machines per hub. And so you can have multiple hubs too. So that's it. So basically we started with an Intel machine. We booted to internet recovery with a known starting base OS and upgraded that to the most recent one. Then we moved on to the using auto DFU to automatically plug a Mac in and boom, have that go into DFU mode, restore it, and then go into recovery, which once again we can run an MDS workflow. And the final one is where we use the acronym hub to plug in multiple machines, put them in DFU mode, and then restore them. And then at that point we can put them to recovery and again run the MDS workflow. So thanks very much for watching, and enjoy your deployment of machines from 2013 all the way to current. Thanks for watching.